Is Africa going to be like Asia in the future? If we are expecting Africa to become like the Asian tigers, then the answer is no. On the other hand, if we are talking about Asian countries like India and China, then the answer is definitely yes. You see, development can come about in a variety of ways. There are many developed countries around the world that got to their developed status using a different paradigm than manufacturing. Some developed countries like Australia just developed by exporting more natural resources which they have in abundance. Some like USA, France and England, initially used industrial manufacturing, but have now switched to services and internal consumption. Some smaller countries have used only tourism to develop, and also, some island countries have used their countries as tax havens for the rich, to develop their economies. A lot of people mistakenly think African countries need to manufacture and export technological equipment, to be able to develop. They even go to the extent of wrongly arguing that Africans are unable to develop their own technology, and therefore will be unable to develop. What these people do not know is that Africans have the ability to manufacture, but due to what happened in the past in terms of colonization, Africans are unable to compete and break through the technology market. Many of the Western colonial countries set up their African colonies to be producers of natural resources. These resources were shipped to the Western countries to produce manufacturing goods. African countries trying to break away from this colonial mold are presented with many hindrances. For example, the Western advanced countries will not allow cars manufactured in Africa to enter the European market. They will use safety and many other reasons to prevent an African company trying to break into the European market from doing so. African automobile startup companies cannot just set up and become highly efficient and with all the safety mechanisms in place right from scratch. They will need to be given the opportunity to improve. The Western countries that started making cars were given the opportunity to improve, even though the initial fleet of cars they produced were inefficient and lacked several safety features. Unfortunately, the European and American markets will not allow African manufactured automobiles to enter their markets. The same people turn around and say Africans are not innovative, whereas the actual reason why manufacturing is not happening in Africa is that they cannot break into other markets. That is why personally I think African countries will develop differently. They will have to stick to what they are already doing in their respective countries, and just improve and multiply things they are already exporting. At a point, they will make enough money, GDP per capita will increase, and it will set them on the trajectory towards development. Just take a look at the overall nominal GDP of Africa. It is only economists and technocrats who are able to look at the above nominal GDP graph of Africa and realize immediately that the above graph shows steps into greatness. Using a very conservative average growth rate of 3.5% per year, I was able to project Africa's total GDP up to the year 2054, just 34 years from today. The results were outstanding. From a low GDP of $2.5 trillion today, Africa's economy is going to grow to become a gigantic $8 trillion economy in terms of nominal GDP, in just about 30 years. Since Africa's GDP to PPP multiplier is 2.66, that means in a little over 30 years, Africa's PPP will be more than $22 trillion. Also take note that I used a very conservative growth rate figure of 3.5%. Africa as a continent is capable of achieving a higher growth rate than 3.5% if you factor in future population growth. So in conclusion, Africa does not really have to imitate the Asian countries to be able to develop. They can just keep to what they are already doing, improve and become more effective in quality and quantity, and they can develop just by so doing.